Hello and welcome to the Minimum Competence episode for Wednesday, September 11th, 2024. I'm your host for today, Andrew Leahy, a tax and technology attorney from New Jersey. On today's episode, we have young lawyers facing financial stress due to student debt, the U.S. House voting on a stopgap funding bill, the trial for Tyre Nichols' death, and a civil rights complaint against the University of Georgia. Let's remember, everywhere immigrants have enriched and strengthened the fabric of American life, and read today's legal news. On this day in legal history, September 11th, 1978, Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin and Egyptian President Anwar Sadat reached a historic agreement at Camp David, laying the foundation for peace between Israel and Egypt. The Camp David Accords, brokered by U.S. President Jimmy Carter, marked the first time an Arab nation had agreed to recognize Israel, a significant diplomatic breakthrough in the Middle East. The Accords outlined a framework for peace that included the eventual return of the Sinai Peninsula to Egypt, which had been occupied by Israel since the 1967 Six-Day War, and the establishment of normalized diplomatic and economic relations. The agreement was formalized in the Israel-Egypt Peace Treaty signed in 1979. This peace treaty not only ended decades of conflict between the two nations, but also set a precedent for future Arab-Israeli negotiations. The Accords earned Sadat and Begin the Nobel Peace Prize in 1978, though Sadat's willingness to make peace with Israel led to his assassination in 1981 by Egyptian extremists. Despite challenges, the treaty has endured, making Egypt the first Arab country to formally make peace with Israel, reshaping geopolitics in the region and establishing the U.S. as a key mediator in Middle East peace efforts. A recent American Bar Association, that's the ABA for those in the know, survey reveals that financial stress and anxiety affects two-thirds of young lawyers, with student loan debt significantly shaping their career and life choices. The survey, conducted by the ABA's Young Lawyers Division and Access Lex Institute, found that 68% of respondents with student loans felt stressed or anxious due to their debt, while 67% of all young lawyers, regardless of loans, reported financial stress. Many respondents, particularly those owing $100,000 or more, said their debt led to feelings of depression or hopelessness. The survey also showed that student debt delays major life events like marriage and homeownership for 76% of participants. Most respondents borrowed for law school with a median debt of $137,500. Additionally, 27% reported owing more now than at graduation due to income-based repayment plans. Despite financial challenges, 74% of young lawyers would still pursue a law degree, and 65% would attend the same law school. Public service loan forgiveness programs and Biden administration debt relief efforts have provided some support, though many obstacles remain. The U.S. House of Representatives is set to vote on a 6-month stopgap funding bill proposed by Republican Speaker Mike Johnson, aimed at preventing a government shutdown before the fiscal year ends on September 30th. The bill faces opposition from Democrats, primarily due to a provision that would require proof of citizenship to register to vote, a measure seen as politically charged ahead of the November elections. Former President Donald Trump has urged Republicans to pass this voting measure. However, some Republicans oppose the stopgap due to spending concerns, and 2 Republicans joined Democrats in blocking a procedural vote to advance the bill. If passed in the House, the bill faces an uphill battle in the Democrat-controlled Senate. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer criticized the proposal as overly partisan, while the White House has indicated President Biden would veto the bill. Biden's administration is pushing for a shorter funding extension and more disaster relief funding. Additionally, Congress faces a critical January 1st deadline to address the nation's debt ceiling, risking default if no action is taken. 3 former Memphis police officers are standing trial in federal court for their involvement in the January 2023 death of Tyre Nichols, a black motorist whose brutal beating by police officers led to widespread outrage and police reform. Video footage showed 5 officers kicking, punching, and using pepper spray and a baton on Nichols, who died 3 days later in a hospital. 2 of the 5 officers have pleaded guilty to federal civil rights charges, leaving 3 facing trial where they could face life in prison if convicted. The incident reignited concerns about racism and police brutality in the U.S., prompting reforms in Memphis, such as disbanding the specialized police unit involved in the incident and implementing stricter traffic stop protocols. The officers also face second-degree murder charges in a separate state case, which has been postponed until after the federal trial. Nichols' family has filed a $550 million lawsuit against the city, seeking damages to push for further changes in police practices nationwide. In response to the assault, additional officers were either fired or suspended, and several fire department employees involved in the incident were also dismissed. The Council on American Islamic Relations has filed a civil rights complaint on behalf of the University of Georgia students, alleging discrimination against individuals of Palestinian, Arab, and Muslim descent. The complaint, filed with the U.S. Department of Education, claims the university violated Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits discrimination by institutions receiving federal funding. According to CARE, pro-Palestinian students faced harassment following the escalation of conflict in Gaza, and the university failed to adequately address or prevent this discrimination. The University of Georgia responded by emphasizing its support for free speech and non-discrimination policies, while also maintaining that it enforces rules against policy violations. The complaint comes amid widespread protests across U.S. campuses concerning the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which have seen instances of both anti-Semitic and Islamophobic rhetoric. The conflict has led to heightened tensions and a broader discussion of human rights, discrimination, and free speech in academic settings. And with that, I thank you so much for listening to Minimum Competence, your daily news podcast for lawyers. If you're looking for more than Minimum Competence, links to further reading on all the topics touched on today are in the show notes. And reviews go a long way towards helping new listeners to find our show. If you have a moment, leave a rating or review on your podcast player. We'd sure appreciate it. And if you know someone that might be interested in a story we cover, consider sending them the episode. But remember, nothing here should be construed as legal advice because it is certainly not that. Minimum Competence is available at minimumcomp.com and wherever you get your finely crafted podcasts. If you haven't checked out the website in a while, give it a look. There are complete transcripts and resources for each episode and its corresponding segments, as well as an opportunity to receive new episodes in email, newsletter, form. We'll see you back here tomorrow, and until then, remember, history shows that wherever the ignorant masses fear, scapegoating immigrants is the go-to political strategy.